I'm here tonight to discuss a teacher resignation at Sunnyside. I want to say that this resignation is devastating to the Pulaski School District. It is my interpretation that this teacher chose to resign because she was retaliated against for advocating for my child. If you recall, I spoke to the board in December about the struggle my child has had in math at Sunnyside. Her teacher, who, by the way, has been nominated by several people for a Golden Apple Award, helped me understand the appropriate steps to take to get my daughter help. And from what I can gather, because she helped me, the administration disciplined her.
Kelly, I'm going to stop you right there. If you're going to make any complaints about the administration or any school personnel, this is not the appropriate forum.
What is the appropriate forum?
There is a school policy. The appropriate policy is 9130. So I'd ask that you look at that policy. But the board oversees
the administration. Is that not correct?
If you are going to address any school personnel complaints, then you need to follow that policy.
So I can't speak about what happened to this teacher.
You can speak about your opinion about this teacher, but if you are going to speak about any complaints about any administrators or personnel, I ask that you follow Board Policy 9130.
Here's
what
I will say.
This is not the appropriate forum.
Here's what I will say. The rights that I utilized to get my daughter help and continue to get my daughter help, I learned from the Procedural Safeguards Handbook issued to me by the school. I talked to the DPI and they gave me information, and I checked a book out from the library. The fact that this teacher appears to have been disciplined and subsequently resigned must have happened because, honestly, if anyone knows her, she wouldn't have done this herself. She loves her students way too much for that. So I beg to ask, has anyone inquired why she is leaving? My daughter's previous 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and now 4th grade teacher have resigned from Sunnyside. Our 4th and 5th grade scores at Sunnyside continue to be the worst in the district as of this January's FastBridge testing. And now, who is going to be teaching my daughter and her 4th grade class for the rest of this school year? My daughter continues to struggle, and now the consistency of a good teacher is gone. You cannot tell me a long-term substitute will be able to build a relationship and educate her at the same level. I just want to let you know that there have been long-term substitutes in the 4th and 5th grade at Sunnyside the last 2 years, and now 3 years.
Kelly, your time is up. If you could finish.
Why can't we keep good teachers, especially at Sunnyside?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Moving on to the SRO introductions. Allie, you want to start this off?
Sure, I do. I see that if Josh and Zach are both here tonight, you guys would just want to stand up. They've been working really hard. They've been with us since January, right after the holiday. The principals are also here tonight. There's quite a few of them that would just like to share a few things about how they're going. But first off, we'd just like to welcome both of you formally in front of the board. So I think we should just give the guys a round of applause. If you remember correctly, Zach is out at Lenoy and at Hillcrest. Although he's kind of, done the touring around in the district as well. And Josh has also done that touring for the whole district as well, but he's primarily working at the middle school and at Fairview and at Sunnyside. So Pat is also here tonight as our safety coordinator. So Pat, I think I'm gonna let you kick it off with just a few things that you've talked with the SROs about, and then maybe if the building principals and the SROs would like to share just how their first weeks have been going.
I was trying to think of something funny to say as Josh was standing there and like looking, can he sit down? Yes, please sit down. No. And I would add Hunter into the mix with this as well. And I guess as the middle school principal, number one, for those of you that may or may not know me, as well as then the district safety coordinator, I got to tell you from firsthand working with Josh, he's just done a super job coming on board. As many of you probably know, Hunter and his wife had their first child, so he's doing a lot of paternity time. And so Josh is kind of like, get a few days of training or a week of training and just really jumped in, has done a fantastic job getting around and meeting the staff members at the middle school, coming out to Sunnyside as well, just based on some of his responsibilities at, the two big, the high school and middle school. I know he wants to be out there more often than he has in Fairview, but really establishing those relationships. And I think that's been a positive with our staff and our kids, and just doing just a fantastic job. So, I mean, he has been a great addition, looking at what he can do on the proactive side, the education side of things. So huge thumbs up, to the villages and the district. And it's just been really, really good to get to know him as well. Zach, I haven't had as much opportunity. We played some email communication back and forth. I'm trying to hook him into coach. He wants to coach football, so I want him to be a football coach at the middle school. But and Chris can certainly talk a little bit more about the experience between Lenoy and Hillcrest. But I can just tell by his demeanor who he is, that he's just going to be a really good fit, coming from Hobart Lawrence into our school district. Things that, I did communicate and with all three, including Hunter, just as a safety coordinator, is to get some information on, hey, you're a fresh set of eyes. I've been here 27 years. Hunter's he's been here for 30 years because he grew up here. It's like you get a fresh set of eyes to kind of see things. Are there things that jump out at the buildings that they've been in? Josh and Zach have both said drills are going well. The infrastructure with like doors being locked and getting hooked up with the camera system, and that is going really well. And they're just looking forward to continuing to build those connections. So there wasn't any, and I'll let them talk about that, any red flag there. Hunter and I are going to be meeting next week when he's back. We're just going to talk a little bit more about some drill and some visitor consistency issues that when there's visitors in the building, and just making sure that all of our buildings are on the same page about how those things go. So again, I think they've done a great job, and I think one of the big words that all of our schools and all of us want are those positive relationships with kids. To be a resource officer, not a cop with a gun. It's a resource officer for our kids and our staff, and then to be there for any safety related things as well. So I think they're doing a great job from my lens. I don't know, Chris, if you have thoughts from like Hillcrest, Lenoy, and
yeah, I think looking at Zach's schedule, right now he's at Hillcrest in the morning, he's at Lenoy in the afternoon. But that schedule is flexible, so if there's a need in one building versus the other, Peggy will call and say, can you send Zach to Lenoy? Or I'll call and say, can you send Zach back to Hillcrest? So we've had that flexibility with the schedule, visible, in the hallways, in the cafeteria when students are eating breakfast and eating lunch, joins, I think, Lenoy at recess time, is doing some informal check-ins with students. Has met with principals and students with just different behavior things, which Peggy and I are leading, but he's participating and having some of those conversations as well. One of the first times I was walking a new family, a family tour around the building, Zach got up and kind of came over and introduced himself to the new family, and they're not a Hillcrest family yet, but hopefully will take place. So I mean, just those communication, that relationship piece. At Hillcrest, space is limited, which we all know. He's housed in the library, which is an active, busy place at Hillcrest. So he's helping students with academics when they're in there. If they're in there taking a break, he's helping those students. So doing lots of, building those relationships with kids. So great to have him on board.
And gentlemen, tell us how happy are you to be in our building? We'd like to hear.
So yeah, I'm Zach. I am very happy. I love it. It's a lot better. I enjoy working with the kids a lot more than the people I work with out on the road. It's a much happier, much more fun environment. So I really, I feel like I enjoy going to work every day. I enjoy going to hang out with the kids, spend time with them, help educate them any way I can, help them learn, develop into good people. So I've loved it so far. And I'm excited to get in the classrooms more. Hopefully next year we'll be able to get in some classrooms more and stuff and do some education. So, I'm just really excited for what the future has too.
Josh, want to add anything?
Yeah, like Zach, it's, by the way, I'm Josh Nickett. The kids refer to me as Officer Josh, figuring it's much easier to do it that way, but the staff has been phenomenal. And I'm not just saying that. The individuals that I've worked with, the teachers, administration, have all been very kind and very nice. I'm very happy working in the schools with them. Students have even been great. If I'm walking around the high school, the students will come up to me and say, "Hey, can I help you find something? Do you need some?" I'm like, "This is fantastic." Like, everybody is so nice all the time. Of course, you're going to have to deal with a couple of situations that I have to deal with at the high school with a couple individuals who are not very happy that day. But that's just what happens. But overall, I am very happy to be in this position. I'm very fortunate to have been selected to be in this position, and I definitely, like Zach said, enjoy coming to work every day. It's much better than working on the road, like I have done for the last 15 years. So it was a nice breath of fresh air to be in the schools. Pat's been great working over with Pat at the middle school, setting up my office. It's looking better and better every day. Working with Nick from facilities, who's been really great. Everybody's been awesome to help set me up and get me placed and have a nice office in the area to work with. But other than that, I don't know what else I can really say. I'm just very happy to be here. Everything's been good. Obviously, it's been a little crazy with Hunter being off and Hunter being in the position and kind of showing me some of the steps that need to be taken in the realm of being in the school versus being on the road. But it's very good that I had prior experiences in schools before and working as a road officer for 15 years. So it's not too difficult, but he's been great helping me along with it. But yeah, great.
Well, again, we welcome you both. We're really glad you're on board with us, and just good things to come, right?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Any questions? Moving on to the overnight field trips. We have a series of field trips again this week. The first one is the middle school jazz band to Rolling Meadows.
Yep, and I'm here on behalf of the of our band folks for 7th and 8th grade. This is a return trip. It's not an overnight. It's a go down on a Saturday, perform at a festival, get critiqued by the judges, for the lack of better words. Listen to other bands perform as well, and it's the kids that in our jazz band. Funding wise is going to be relatively cost neutral. We have some fundraising going on. The boosters, PCMS Music Boosters, have offered to help out. Like Barb, I know will say, if anyone needs to be on that bus, they'll be on the bus. The answer is they'll be on the bus. It won't be an issue at all. So we're just looking for approval to let them go across the border to Rolling Meadows to perform and listen to other middle school jazz ensembles participate. Motion to approve. Do you want me to just go to the next one, or do you want? Or you
Well,
got
We're gonna have to take them singly.
singly?
So,
Okay.
yeah. There is a motion on the floor to approve. Is there seconds?
I just did.
There's a motion and a second, and then Heidi, you have a question.
Yes. So there's no one listed for the medical training as that's required. It says
Yeah,
TBD.
and that must have just been, let's see, I'm just going back, I was looking at the next one to pull it up. So with Wes Couch, who is a new teacher in the building this year, we hired him from Denmark. He and Colleen Marler will be going on the trip. Colleen was also on the Rose Bowl trip, but didn't need to be certified for the medication piece of that. But she is going to be doing that ahead of the trip, and it will be contingent on that.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other
They just
questions?
had to decide who was for sure, and
And that's not every kid in 7th and 8th grade. It's only the kids in jazz.
in jazz, yes, correct.
Just-
It's
so
one bus load worth about, I think it's 35 kids.
It's a small special group. Yeah.
Any other questions? There's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Tell them to have a great trip.
Sounds good, I will do that.
All right. The next one is the middle school FFA to Wisconsin Dells. Sticking
So,
with you, Pat.
This one is an overnight as well, in-state overnight. It's about 25 of our middle school age students that are involved in the FFA, so through our agri-science program and Mr. Santee. It's a leadership conference where there are keynote speakers, there's different sectionals. I should have asked, and I apologize that I didn't. We usually have kids that then participate and present at sectionals. I didn't ask that, and I apologize for not doing that. It's a return. They do this every year. Just kind of the timing and the location changes. Again, it isn't overnight. The overall cost is about $300 based on donations and from the Alumni Association and fundraising. The cheapest that anyone would pay out of pocket is $0. If they did some level and where they fell within the fundraising, some kids will pay $50. And then if kids didn't do any fundraising, they get the trip for over half off at $125. There's still opportunities, since this is in April, for families to fundraise, through the FFA and those things to even reduce the amount from where they're at today. But similarly, we make sure that the kids are on the bus. So if they are part of it and are able to, participate, they will go.
Make a motion to approve.
A second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the field trip to Wisconsin Dells as presented. Any other question? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Great. Are we sticking with you again on the
Let's
third one?
keep right on
Middle
rolling.
school's busy. This is wrestling to Verona.
Wrestling to Verona. This came up due to some poor weather we had a couple of weeks ago, where there was a tournament in Wausau that our kids were going to participate in. It was canceled due to weather. So we met with our wrestling coaches. We have actually 2 tournaments going on that weekend that we'd like our PCMS wrestlers to be a part of. So all wrestlers will participate in one of 2. This one happens to be for our state qualifiers. So we'll have some of our students, I think 20, that will be that have qualified or would be participating on this trip. The reason it's coming to the board is because it is an overnight trip because of the timing of matches and so forth. So this group would be going on that particular date, coming quickly, March 2nd. And again, it's an overnight trip down to Verona. As far as the cost to students, there is no cost. We worked with Mark Logan in regards to this, as well as the Pulaski Wrestling Booster Club. So it's all picked up and just need your permission.
Move to approve the wrestling trip to Verona.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the wrestling trip to Verona as presented. Any other discussion or question? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Pat. Any more? You're good to
Oh,
participate?
Yeah, there's a trip to Hawaii.
All right, moving on to the next agenda item, which is the student iPad lease.
Hello. Amy Ullman, Director of Instructional Technology. So in box, you have a memo regarding an iPad lease, and that is document number 3. And we are asking for your approval to enter into an Apple lease to refresh our student iPads. Just to give you a little bit of background, since 2016, the digital learning plan and budget has provided iPads in the hands of all of our students, K-12. It was an incremental increase over the years, and we are to the point of every student having an iPad. We have always funded the iPads through Apple leases. They've always been 4 years. And our final payment on our current lease was this past September in 2023. So it's a really great time for us to enter into a new lease with Apple for a variety of reasons. The first is need. We have our current iPads have 32 gigabytes of space, and they're full. We use them really well, and we have some really advantageous apps. And so the new iPad would have 64 gigabytes of space, so that would be really good for us and our students. But also financially, it's a good time. Apple is offering us a 0% financing lease for 4 years. They've also dropped the price of the iPads from $414 each to $329 each.
Is it $329 or $379?
I had a typo in the memo. Thank you, Heidi. It's $329.
Okay.
If you look on 3A, which is the quote, you'll see that price there. So thank you for bringing that up. And then finally, when we do a refresh, we collect the students' iPads, we give them their new iPad, they set it up, and then we sell our current fleet to a reseller. And right now, our value is really high for our fleet. That will drop drastically after the summer because that's when districts usually sell their fleets at the end of summer in September. So there's a higher value now than there will be if we wait. So the funding for the lease is secured through the digital learning plan budget. It's how how we have always paid for that. And our first payment would be this September in 2024. So the other two documents that you have, so document 3A just is the quote from Apple. It line items out everything that would be in the lease, which includes the iPads, the cases, and then the Logitech crayons. If you want to see any of those, I have those here today. A Logitech crayon is a stylus. And then the last document is 3A, which just shows you the lease payments. The only note I'd like to make about the payments is if you'll see the lease payments for each of the 4 years, those last 4 line items. But then you'll see 2 line items at the top, which are our lease pay downs. The first one for $100,000 is money that we have secured in the technology budget to pay for the crayons. So we'll just be paying that as soon as they arrive. And then the second on September 15th of 2024 is a payment for selling our fleet. So any questions I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, we would love if you would approve the ability for us to move forward with the refresh this spring.
So at the bottom of this, it says we will make 2 payments prior to the first lease payment due from existing funds. So we're gonna make that this year, out of this year's budget, you have that secured.
Yeah, so if you look at the middle column there, the payment date, one is May 2nd, that's for that $100,000, and then one will be in September, the following September, when we get our money for the fleet. We actually sell them the fleet in May, but by the time they process it all and give us the check, it's usually 90 days.
Do you sell it right back to them?
We sell it, no, we
Oh.
bid it out to a variety of resellers,
Oh,
and we just pick based on best.
best deal. Sounds good.
I make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second to approve the 4-year Apple lease as presented. Are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
All
you.
those opposed? Motion carried. Your students will be happy.
Yes.
Moving on to the health insurance presentation.
So as most of you know, we went self-funding last year with our health insurance. So this time of year, we'll be coming to you right around every March to April with insurance renewals for next year. So because this is a workshop meeting, we just wanted to provide some education around self-funding. So some of you were a part of the board last year, some of you were not. So we'll provide kind of a high-level overview tonight. We have Jackie from Brown & Brown, our insurance consultant, with us. So she'll be presenting on this. Certainly, if you have questions, this will be a good time to ask. And then we'll also have follow-up information, probably April, regarding what that looks like for next year. And then that would be the formal approval moving into the 24-25 school year. So I will turn it over to Jackie.
Absolutely. And then somebody's clicking for me, I'm assuming. Oh, there we go. Thank you. All right, so as Allie mentioned, we'll just go high level. There's a lot we can get into, but I'm sure you've got some other agenda items to get to. So as any questions come up as we're going through, please feel free to ask away. So the first piece, just reminding everybody of the big win of going from fully insured to self-funded. To put a reminder in on what that really means. Fully insured, you're really at the mercy of your carriers, your insurance carriers, United Healthcare, Anthem, the Humanas of the world. So those fully insured policies mean that each year we are paying a certain premium, and that whether we do good or whether we do bad, that premium is going to the insurance company. So in a self-funded situation, we have a third-party administrator who's processing your claims, which is UMR, and we're utilizing their networks. You still have access to a great network of providers, a great network discount, and what self-funding allows you to do is have your own flexibility of things that you want to include in your plan or things you do not want to include in your plan. And why that's really important is we're in a very tricky time of a lot of diagnoses that can cost upwards of $1 million. And so while we want to take care of your population and we want to do what's best, there's also very innovative solutions that only self-funding can do. And you'll see some of that in some of the wins that the district has had. So by going self-funded, you're able to tackle those high-cost claims instead of being at the mercy of the carrier. And then when you have a better year, you actually get to keep those funding that you did not spend on those premiums. So it is a huge win. There's a lot of flexibility, a lot of innovation that you can put on the plan, And this year is going to be a really good example of being able to shave upwards of $1 million off of spend by being self-funded and putting some of these solutions into place. Any questions just on high level from fully insured to self-funding, what that meant for the district? Okay, so then in doing so, you were able to get some pretty cool things. So one of them is open access. So a network that allows you to see pretty much any provider. They're the nation's largest network, the Choice Plus network. So that is a big change for the district. And then it also gave you options for different resources like Teladoc. Teladoc is a 24/7 acute care virtual option. So you have your population that they're sick or a child is sick at 9 p.m., 6 a.m., it doesn't matter. They can get on the phone, they can have that consultation, and they can get a prescription written if needed. So that's a huge benefit, not only to see any provider, but to have that type of flexibility to access care 24/7. We talked about the broad network, so you have a lot of choice. And then one of the big things and what was able to really shave a lot of money off the budget this year is the risk mitigation strategies. So one of those is a voluntary program which allows members to come off of your plan. In turn, they have basically free health care. And this is coming from, the reason it's called Samaritan Funds is it's a nonprofit and they get donations. So the Samaritan Fund is for those individuals with really high-level spend, either prescription, medical, diagnoses, very serious diagnoses. So this allows those individuals to come off of the plan and really get free health care, which is a huge innovation. You're not able to do that with fully insured plans. So that was the biggest impact. We're upwards of $1 million right now based on some of those individuals who are able to take advantage. So it's good for the district, and then it's also great for those individuals because now they don't have that out-of-pocket expense that even your deductibles and your out-of-pockets, while they're very competitive and they're great benefits, it's still money that individuals have to put out of their pocket. So that's a great program you were able to institute. Payer Matrix is another program that you're only able to do when you're self-funded. This allows you to take your prescription drugs that are high-cost specialty and put them outside of the plan. And when you put them outside of the plan, you're able to get different discounts, sometimes 100% coverage. It allows us to access what's called manufacturer's coupons. So when you're watching the Packer game and you see all those commercials, hey, you could get your medication free, call me. That's what that is. It's accessing a type of coupon that fully insured isn't able to access. So by implementing Payer Matrix, you were able to get a couple $100,000 back into the district, and also the medications paid for those members. And something that we're looking at here moving forward is called PT First, which is physical therapy. And this is a strategy where you're looking to direct contract. We're still in the throes of the RFP and looking at different vendors. But what direct contracting allows us to do is to set our price and to set it below where the contracted rates are through the insurance company. And the reason these facilities want to do that and are interested is because they believe it'll drive volume, so it's good for their business as well. And we like to look at different vendors to do that, but one of the things that it brings into play is independent providers. So providers that aren't necessarily turning you around, giving you an MRI, sending you into surgery early. That's why it's called PT First. Let's see what we can do with physical therapy. And there's a lot of stats that we can just breeze over here too on really the cost of musculoskeletal, and it's one of the highest categories that Pulaski will find. So making sure that we can head that off by a PT First strategy, that'll be another cost savings opportunity for the district here moving forward. So a lot of wins to celebrate. Sometimes the first year self-funded, I'll be honest, is not that easy. Sometimes we have some hard years and we have to take a few years to put strategies in place, but the strategies that you had all agreed to really worked and made for a successful first year of self-funding. All right, so how do we measure that success? Real high level, we look at that bottom right red circle, which is, it says percentage of premium equivalence, which is essentially your loss ratio. So you set the premiums at a certain amount, just like you would for being fully insured, but instead of paying them to an insurance carrier, you're only paying them as claims come up. So to date, you're at an 89%, 100% would be if we spent all of that money. And that's the sweet spot that we want the district to stay in, because every year we have to factor in things like medical trend, prescription trend increases. If you are exactly the same as you were last year, you're 8% behind. So being at around a 90% loss ratio is really good because it then accounts for some of that medical trend that will be built in. You'll see too, there's just a couple different areas that we measure. So your fixed costs are going to be very small in comparison to your overall claims spend. I also want to remind everyone that the first couple of months are going to look really light. It's not because you had a really great month. It's because when you come off of fully insured, they're responsible for the claims that happened prior to July 1st. So you'll see a little bit of those months that are a little bit understated. But when we set the budgets, those premium equivalents, we took that into account. It's called a mature year. So even though you're in an immature year, we kind of short up the premium equivalents so that you wouldn't have to take a big hike next year. So again, being at 90% with all of that considered, sitting in a really good spot. You'll also see there's a breakout here of the employee and the employer cost. Just as a ratio, those are things we look at each year too, benchmark them, make sure that you're competitive for the geography as well as just the professions that you're in. An area that we like to measure is your network discount. So this is the Choice Plus network I was referring to. And it's really important to have a solid network, not only for the choice of providers, but also because this is the discounts that they have negotiated with this network. So what we hope for with the Choice Plus network is over 50%. If it dips below that, somehow somebody's found an out-of-network provider and we have to look into that further. So you are sitting in a very healthy 52.3% overall. There was some coordination of benefits in there. There was some secondary network usage that we were able to negotiate at a higher percentage, very small amount of volume. So all in all, a 52.3%. That means that out of the 4.7 covered dollars, the allowed amount was only 2.2 million. So the discount saved from the district by being part of Choice Plus was 2.4 million.
Is that really low for telemedicine claims, $2,300?
So, and that's a very good question. So telemedicine is going to be different than teledoc. Telemedicine would be, I want to have a virtual visit with my provider. So that's not necessarily low.
Okay.
We do monitor the teledoc visits more because those are the acute situations, which you have decent utilization. I think we actually included that slide at a later time. Good question. We are seeing that start to increase though across just the industry in general, but a lot more often than not, people are still going into their providers and really only using that telemedicine component if they're calling teledoc or an acute vendor.
We had a benefit advisory committee meeting a couple weeks ago, and that was one portion of education that we're going to do a better job with in the next couple months here is teledoc, to just remind staff that it's out there because it's newer.
Right. Okay. Absolutely.
And you'll see that reflected in a few slides.
All right. This looks a little bit light because you don't have the prior year data yet. That's another highlight that I didn't mention is being self-funded. We have access to all of the data as far as what are your musculoskeletal claims spend? Where are you seeing issues? Are you having more of a diabetic issue? Is it, where can we put programs in place that will really attack the issues that are going on in the health plan? So when we'll have the prior year, this will be a little bit more full, but you can still start to see how Pulaski is really looking for the norm, which the norm is UMR's book of business. So there's a lot of clients in there, and almost straight across the board, you're running better. Now, I'll caveat that with saying that in the first couple months, you were pretty light on some claims, so the data is a little bit skewed, again, just because the purveyor is responsible for what happened before December, and usually it takes a couple of months for the bills to get paid. So that data will show up next year. You'll have that full look of the last 12 months. So there's just a little bit of a nuance there with this reporting year. But some of the things to call out, your emergency room visits compared to the norm are almost half. So you can see 76.3, we always look at per 1,000 to put apples to apples, whereas UMR's norm is around 216. We also can track things like avoidable ER visits. And in here, they're looking at diagnosis. So we say out of those, probably half of those were actually avoidable. I always give the example, if you go in because you think you're having a heart attack and somebody identifies they have anxiety, it's gonna show that it was avoidable, but we don't necessarily want them to avoid that ER visit. So if we cut that in half, you had about 5 individuals that likely had an avoidable diagnosis, which again goes back to the teledoc. Maybe it was something where somebody woke up with pink eye or a sinus infection, UTI, that could have been handled over the phone and through a prescription. The other thing we want to celebrate is your well visits are well above what we would see as a norm, and that's not typical. We usually do not see that. We usually see that we're a little bit below norm, especially in the Wisconsin region, and that's going for your annual physicals. So that's a huge celebration, and the way that you have your wellness set up, it's a testament to that. So that's amazing. The reason we have highlighted the outpatient surgery is because we are higher than norm. But that's the PT first strategy. That's an area that we'll get at that piece. This is the teledoc slide we were referring to, so you can see that to date your utilization's around 19%, which is actually high for a first year program, and your savings year to date are up close to $15,000. The reason that we're pushing this is you'll see your registrations compared to your overall membership is a little bit low. And we find that people utilize the program when they've already taken the 10 minutes to complete their registration, complete their medical history. Otherwise, they'll just do what's familiar, go to the urgent care, emergency room, etc. So that's something that we're going to be focusing on, is getting those registrations up so that when people do need them, that they're available. And lastly, physical therapy first, we talked about, is really our initiative that we're pushing now. Current spend is trending to reach almost $500,000. So that's 9% of your overall spend, which is a little bit skewed because you had some of those high cost medications that are now off of the plan. So as a percentage, you'll actually see that be higher. Nonetheless, that's what we're getting at. So the physical therapy, usually it's going to be around $150 to $200 for an average physical therapy visit. That's going to be down anywhere between $125 to $140, depending on which provider we go with. And then the cost to the actual employee will be very little. On the copay plan, we can make that as little as $0, and on your high deductible health plan can make that as little as $5, $10. So it'll be a huge benefit to the employees, and you'll be getting a huge cost savings as the district as well. And more importantly, there'll be we're going to see a reduction in surgeries getting at physical therapy a little bit sooner. So that $500,000 we would hope would continue to trend in the right direction. Any questions? No, that was pretty fast. Tried to stay to my 10 minutes.
In terms of that physical therapy first step, when would you look for that to be in place?
So we're talking about what that would look like. 7-1 would be the easiest, but then to roll it out during open enrollment so everybody's aware of it, it kind of comes out with a bang versus, even though that's in summer, make all those decisions and have that roll out. But it's a really flexible time frame, so it could happen before, it could happen after. But we've talked about 7-1 probably makes the most sense to roll it out during open enrollment.
How are we getting feedback from the staff, employees on the plan?
Good question. So we have the business committee, obviously, which has some of that feedback, and then we talked about also doing a survey and gathering feedback to see what's the most important when we look at things like location, cost, convenience, which will help us understand some of the vendors and where to really prioritize expectations.
What's the feedback been so far? It's almost a year.
So we've had a lot of positive feedback from staff, broader network, able to see different providers, different prescription coverage, so in different ways now that we're working with Incurex and Peer-Matrix. I just had an email from an employee yesterday or the day before that said how easy it was, and they went through Peer-Matrix and used a manufacturer coupon, so the drug would have been $1,500 if it went down to $10. And that was, I don't know if it was every month or every 3 months. So there's just a lot of flexibility and neat things that we can do to make it cost effective, but make sure that that person, the employee or their dependent, has the care that they need. I think one of the learning, or one of the steps that it did take for some staff, was just figuring out how to work with Peer-Matrix. So you get a patient care advocate, I'm not sure if that's the exact name. So as long as you're working with them and working with your provider to get that paperwork, we've had a lot of positive feedback as long as you're following that process. But it's been, knock on wood, quiet, but positive feedback when we've been out there.
So, and this could be like at open enrollment time, could we give education about like ER visits? Like when is it appropriate to see, you know, maybe teledoc or urgent care or the ER? Because all those, you know, mean different things and they definitely obviously cost and it's, you know, goes up for each one. And I know at my employer that was a big thing when they tried to drive down those ER visits because thousands of dollars versus talking, you know, about an urgent care or teledoc appointment, which could be just $10 or $100 or so, you know.
Absolutely, and that's huge, and consumerism and education is a big thing. So we did develop some literature to send out, but we know how that goes, right? Not everybody reads those. So open enrollment is a really great time where we feel like we have people's attention, and that's something that we're gonna drive home. So we have the different modes and then what the approximate cost is, because I think sometimes people don't realize in the moment that there could be a much cheaper alternative. So we'll kind of reinvigorate teledoc, but also remind them what issues make sense to go to ER versus urgent care versus primary care provider. And just the wait times too. If somebody wants to talk to a provider now, ER is probably not the best mode. So reminding them the approximate wait times of each of those, you know, teledoc's 10 minutes, the ER is 3 hours. So absolutely, that's a great suggestion.
Like, you know, like you said, I mean, it seems like the majority are using it properly, but even if we could get it half down to who's, you know, under that potentially avoidable, definitely.
Yeah,
help.
absolutely.
So I just have a request, can we get this insurance stuff a little bit earlier? I think this was uploaded while we were sitting here even maybe.
I don't even have it.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it in your office last year when we had to vote on this. It was my very first meeting and we got it, I think, that day. Can we, I don't know if that's you or her.
That was my
or,
fault this
okay.
time. So typically memos we send right away. This was a presentation, so it lost. There's no action tonight.
Right,
This is just
yeah,
education.
absolutely, but just
Yes.
so I have
So-
time and to call the Queen
Yes.
of Insurance across the desk here and ask her what all these words
Absolutely.
mean.
That was my fault. That was my fault.
Thank you.
I thought your presentation was very clear. I'm not an insurance person, it
Yeah.
made
I just want
sense,
some
it's
time.
clear, it's numbers.
Thank you.
Yeah, it didn't, like I said, I didn't even come across on mine, so I don't know what's wrong with mine, but.
We will make sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, if I can just add a comment, it's, you know, it's rare that we get to celebrate the HR and business office, usually food service presents, I mentioned, so.
Right.
If I can just take a moment to say, you know, over a year ago, we were facing double-digit percentage crippling to our budget renewals. Ally Tress came in with the idea of, you know, we haven't been able to go self-funded, we should investigate it, brought on Brown and Brown. You know, since then, Trish and HR, Cheryl and Shelley have taken on more work. The question was, do you need more staff? They've done it without doing that. The board approved it. Employees have been great rolling on to the new one. So, you know, again, we're 9 months in, things can change year to year, but we're talking, and you'll see next year budget documents, over a 2-year period, $1 million plus savings of real funds, right? We're facing a 20% renewal, new is gonna be another 10. So, just taking that moment to say, you know, this has really been a smooth transition and has had immediate results. So just taking that moment.
It's one of those cases where you guys do a lot of that behind the scenes work and we have no clue what it is, but it ends up a good thing. So you're saving us big money.
I think the choice piece is probably huge too for people, like they're not limited. Makes a big difference.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to the personnel report.
Drive safe.
Yes, all right, so we have 3 items on the personnel report. I do wanna call out that I did add a column, so, we have different effective dates. Thank you, sorry. So I did add a column to make sure we're really clear on the effective dates. We have 1 resignation and 2 retirements. We wanna congratulate, we have over 50 years of service and dedication to the district, so, thank you to the 3 for your years of service.
Can you go over your little asterisks that you added?
Sure, yeah,
I don't think
so
that was ever
we
there
used
or
to,
talked
we
about.
used to, I used to do this individually. So when somebody would resign, maybe it doesn't happen often. When it's a teacher, they owe liquidated damages, so I used to take it individually to them, and I didn't like that because I don't ever wanna call somebody out financial wise. So it'll be like this on every single report now for both the hires and the resignation and retirement. So that'll be a standing item on here, so it's not individualized to one individual, if that makes sense.
That just means if they're leaving earlier or broke their contract or something.
Correct. So like we had one maybe a year ago, it might have been February, and I'd have to go back to look. So you would have saw last year like an asterisk next to that name, and then that statement was underneath their individual name. So rather than doing it individually, we do it broad.
So
Because some people turn it in prior to the board meeting, some people don't.
and then for the new hires, so it's possible that we're approving new hires that haven't went through like the pre-employment requirements or have been released from another district's contract.
Depending upon the timing of it, so we
Okay.
could bring it contingent. So for example, if we are pulling from another district, maybe they're being approved here tonight contingent upon approval tomorrow night at their other board meeting.
Okay.
So when I was out there looking at effective dates and what other districts did, this language comes from a couple other districts
Okay.
as well.
Alright, thank you.
And just, so we're clear, the one retire we already approved last
That is
meeting, so
correct.
there's just additional comments that were added
Correct.
for
He
that.
asked that I share that with you because, yes. He
So-
didn't add that to the last letter.
Gotcha, so we're just, approving one retire and one resignation.
Correct, thank you, Heidi. So you can see that one is a personal note, under his name.
I make a motion to approve as presented.
Second?
There's a motion and a second to approve the personnel report as presented. Any other discussion or
Yes.
question?
Yes, I have some questions. Why did Amy Magden resign?
Can't talk.
I can't speak about that in open session, any personnel matters.
So when I saw her name on here, I reached out to her and spent some time with her this weekend, and I would encourage everyone on this board to do that. We have an obligation to these teachers, our staff in these buildings. This has to stop, and it's on us. It's on us to have these conversations and find out why we're losing all this staff, because it's a lot, and it's time to get our heads out of the sand. That's all I have to say about it.
This did not go right. The situation with this parent here and with this teacher did not go right, and I'm ashamed that this had to happen. And we should all look at ourselves and how this went down because it's wrong. That's all I have to say.
And Kelly is not the only
We can do
parent
better than
bad.
this, and I mean from the intervention to the teacher, to the student, to the family, and now the students are losing a teacher.
I just
That's all I
ask
can
that during this conversation, there are always different perspectives to anything.
We can do better.
And I can't share with you openly in open session regarding personnel or any student information either. But one thing I do want to add to the comment on our data. So we have, I think it's either state or national average is 16% turnover. Our district has 11%. So I know sometimes it can feel like that because we do feel like a small district at times, and other times we feel like a large district, but our turnover rate is not concerning. And I'm very excited. I know Allie shared some information this last week or maybe 2 weeks ago regarding surveying staff and parents. I'm looking forward to that data, so that can be everyone can see that data and the reasons why staff are leaving. I know that was something I shared with you. I don't know if that was in fall. We went over it very high level, but I'm looking forward to what those results say as well.
Can we request that be in a closed session?
What's that?
Can we request that to be in a closed session for another meeting, next meeting?
For what to be?
Discussion of the staffing.
The resignation?
The discussion, yes, we're having right now. She said she cannot have it right now in open session. Can we have this discussion in closed session?
Yes. Specific resignation.
Sure.
It would have to fall underneath one of our,
State statutes?
one of the closed session.
Sure, we'll find it.
As a board, does everyone want us to look to see if it falls under an appropriate state statute to discuss in closed session?
I want to discuss this open session, closed session, not this specific, like we keep hearing these statistics, but we are losing, I just sat next to somebody in Howard Swamico who said, we'll just keep taking your staff from you, and that's what they're doing, they're taking our staff from us. that's where this teacher is going, is Howard Swamico. Again, like, we can pretend that this isn't an issue if you want to, but we're losing teachers hand over fist, and you keep telling us it's because they just want to stay home or they don't want to be teachers anymore. We are driving them out. Start asking some questions, board members.
Well, the survey is being sent out to all staff, and we will be able to get information from that. I think that is
You can talk to staff, you can be in buildings, you can talk to people.
This was handled poorly, and I am sorry what happened to you.
Thank you.
I apologize for.
And your daughter.
I'm really disappointed. Any other discussion on the personnel report? There is a motion and a second to approve the personnel report as presented. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to the student-centered coaches updates.
So a couple weeks ago, I asked the student-centered coaches if they would kind of kick us off with a presentation. We are coming to you to share kind of the 3-year plan that has been in place and that we've been progressing towards. And the reason that we're coming ahead of the other staffing is because out of our 5 coaches, 4 of those 5 actually are all internal people who applied for the positions and wanted that opportunity to serve our district as student-centered coaches. And so there's that probability that that same thing would happen with middle school and high school, so that we'd like to take care of that hiring, and if there are internal people interested, move them into those positions, and then have those positions available and ready to get out with the rest of the positions when we bring your full staffing plan to you, so that all of that hiring can take place and before other districts are out there grabbing people. And I think our principals would say, as they've been doing that hiring, it's been very beneficial to be posting when we do in March, hiring around when we head out to spring break or right after spring break, and already bringing those potential candidates to you in the beginning of April. We just find that we're out there a little bit sooner than the other districts. So that's the main reason why this is happening on February 7th and not on March 6th, I believe, which is the next board meeting. So student-centered coaches is something that we began looking into and researching probably January of 2019. We started off by bringing a group of our learning support teachers and an administrator from each building to a Diane Sweeney workshop, who is kind of the guru of student-centered coaches in the Dells, and we really found that it was the model that we liked for coaching, and so that's kind of how we ended up at this point. So tonight, 4 of the 5 coaches are here, so 3 of them started with us 2 years ago, and that would be Chrissy. At that time, she served at Glenbrook and Fairview, and then we had Lydia, who was a halftime coach as well as a halftime LST, and then Tracy Mittake served between Lenoy and Hillcrest. And then last year, which was part of the plan, was to move to a full-time student-centered coach in each building. So then Chrissy assumed Glenbrook. We brought on Sarah Hansen, who also serves in 2 roles, and we found that that's been a really good marriage between a DLS and an LMS, because they do some coaching with instructional technology, and then also the student-centered coach role. So she serves in both of those capacities at Fairview. And then Becky Berry, who wasn't able to be here tonight, she's our Hillcrest coach. Lydia then went full-time at Sunnyside, and Tracy Mittake is then full-time at Lenoy. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let them share and help you learn more about what student-centered coaching is.
Okay, so first of all, what is student-centered coaching? It's a partnership that's focused on improving student learning, and it's a partnership between the coach and classroom teachers. It's an opportunity for all people involved to grow. It's driven by teacher choice and student need. It's directed by a common goal where we set a standards-based goal. It's flexible and collaborative because we go into the classrooms, we co-teach and co-plan with teachers, and then we collect data, formative assessments, we sort that information and look at student needs. We collaborate how best we can meet each of those needs and how we can differentiate to even reach up to those advanced learners. And then why student-centered coaching? It follows our vision and our journey with professional learning communities. We also focus in on, with coaching, those same 4 components of the PLC. And student-centered coaching is basically the foundational component. It focuses on the universal instruction, which is the core instruction that all students receive. And it's looking at how we can differentiate and meet those students' needs in the classroom before students need to be pulled from the classroom for interventions. And it also provides enrichment to the advanced learners to make sure that they are also continuing to learn, grow, and be challenged as well.
I'm going to talk just a little bit about kind of the core practices for student-centered coaching. We utilize coaching cycles that can look depending on, it could be 3 weeks, it could be 6 weeks, it could be longer depending on the needs of our cycle that we're working on with teachers and students. We're setting those standard-based goals, kind of what Chrissy mentioned. Really those goals are, it's time for us to sit down with the classroom teacher and become thinking partners together. We're not experts in kindergarten phonics or 5th grade decimal points and fractions, so we really form that partnership with classroom teachers. We're brainstorming together regarding student needs. We're focusing on really a specific goal for student learning and then using that student data to kind of move forward in the classroom. That's helping us really navigate towards that measurable impact for all students, not necessarily working with 2 or 3 students in the classroom, but for all of the kids in that room. We're unpacking that goal we set into learning targets, so really thinking about what students have to be able to know and do to meet that standards-based goal. We co-plan with student evidence, so we're using some of that pre-assessment data before we even start our coaching cycle with the teacher of where is every single child in that classroom, where are they now? And then we're planning our next steps, our week out, our next week out, our next time we get together with them in the classroom. We're planning based on that data, how can we move them to the next step? How can we keep going with their understanding and growth? We're co-teaching using some effective instructional practices in the classroom, and that's been going really well, I think, across the board for us. Teachers are open to having another person in the classroom sharing ideas, talking out loud with students, conferencing with students back and forth. I know kind of when we meet as a team and talk through that, we've had a lot of positive experiences, I think, with teachers in the classroom. And then 6, measuring the impact on students and teacher learning, and we're also growing in this process too. You know, we're learning new strategies from the classroom teachers, the teachers are learning from us. And that time we use a tool called the results-based coaching tool, where it's really reflective questioning for the classroom teacher. Looking at, did our cycle work? Are students showing growth? Where do we go next? What are you gonna do to continue some of the things we started during our coaching cycle now that we're leaving your classroom? How are you going to implement that and continue that? And really, by kind of documenting our impact, coaches are able to kind of validate, you know, like, hey, this is really working in the classroom, and we're able to kind of collect that data on our end. And once teachers kind of see, like at Fairview, it's a little different because we're singletons, so it's nice to have you know, you're the only 3rd grade teacher, you're the only 4th grade teacher. It's kind of nice that once they see, hey, the 1st grade teacher did a coaching cycle, and you kind of talk about it, and word of mouth kind of passes through your school that other teachers are jumping on board. And then the last one, just partnering with our school leaders. All of us meet either weekly or bi-weekly to connect and share with our principals our current teaching cycles, what we're working on, things that they're noticing in classrooms that they can share with us, whether that's, you know, like, 5th grade might be struggling with starting small group for reading, like how can you support them, and bringing that information back to teachers and really kind of working together, talking about celebrations, things that are happening within our school, and partnering with them on that level too.
Okay, so according to John Hattie's research, the greatest impact teachers can have on student learning are achieved through collective teacher efficacy, teacher clarity, teaching strategies, and mastery learning. So the model for student-centered coaching naturally supports teacher growth in each of these areas. Collective teacher efficacy is the belief that all teachers believe that all students can and will learn. So we work toward collective teacher efficacy when we create a student-centered goal at the beginning of each cycle. And then we set the expectation that 80% of our students will meet those expectations during the universal or tier 1 learning. So that's really our role, is to enrich the tier 1 experience or the universal learning to support student learning right off the bat. With that student-centered goal, we then the coaches and teachers take the next step, which is breaking the student-centered goal into learning targets. This provides teacher clarity and then allows the teacher to plan accordingly for the unit or lesson. During the teaching and assessing cycle, teachers and coaches continually reflect on student work and adjust teaching strategies according to student need. While our goal is to have 80% of the students meet the student-centered goal at the end of the cycle, we continue to brainstorm and develop a plan for those who still have not mastered the learning. So even though we did everything we could and the cycle ended, we don't just say good luck. We pursue the mastery learning for all students and do what we can for them, supporting the teacher whichever way we decide is best. So our typical student-centered coaching cycle is very intentional, and it allows for a coach to naturally facilitate a process to enhance these aspects that greatly impact student learning.
And so we decided who better to ask than our teachers. And so we've been collecting just testimonials or a video. We reached out and just said, would you share what the impact was for you? And so Stephanie Schutte from Fairview in 2nd grade, she actually did a cycle last year and one this year. And so she talks about how she has done 2 cycles. But I think the big piece we have highlighted there is that she's really got a plan for targeted instruction every single day. And what that allows her to do is quickly reteach or extend student learning. And one thing that isn't highlighted there that I think is a big piece is that students are engaged, they're motivated, but the big part is they're able to demonstrate growth towards mastery. And that's our end goal. This is a video. This is from Liz Avi, 3rd grade teacher at Sunnyside Elementary. You might have to.
Tina, can you hit play?
My name is Liz Avi and I teach 3rd grade at Sunnyside. I did a coaching cycle with Lydia Sorby and absolutely loved every minute of it. I actually regret not asking her to coach sooner. This was my first true coaching cycle with her and it really opened my eyes and not only impacted my teaching but truly impacted the students' learning. It was awesome to have Lydia as my thinking partner to bounce ideas off of or to brainstorm with. When Lydia and I met to plan, we intentionally planned out the lessons and our formative assessments to be able to check in to see if the kids were learning. We broke down our goals into learning targets and we found ways to assess the kids. So once again, we knew if they were learning or not. And if they weren't learning in the moment, Lydia and I were able to pivot the teaching to ensure that student learning. We were constantly looking at our CFA data along with our weekly test data to make sure the students were learning. And if they weren't quite grasping the concept yet, we talked about how we can support them to make sure that we're getting their learning to where we need it to be. Even after my coaching cycle ended, I still continue to plan out the modules like Lydia and I did. I became very intentional about what I am teaching and when I am teaching it. I plan out my formatives so I can ensure that student learning and can have the data to then back it up with. Participating in a coaching cycle truly changed the way I plan and teach in the best way, and that's only positively impacting the student learning. My name is Liz Avi and I teach 3rd grade at Sunnyside.
And then this is a testimonial from 5th grade at Hillcrest. And I think the big part again is that what they are doing, the work they do with a coach doesn't just happen during that cycle. It extends far beyond. And what that focus is then
it is a really strong focus on the learning piece, not just what they're teaching. They're ensuring that learning. And so beyond the cycle is a big piece there. This is the 5th grade teachers from Lenoy. They again said very similar things. I think that the big piece there is their shift in their instructional approach. So again, they are looking at student engagement, which improved the learning environment. They were looking at student ownership of their learning, and what they saw was it increased their scores building-wide and district-wide, and I'm guessing that's maybe FastBridge data that they were looking at. And then we have one more video from Deb Schmidt from 1st grade here at Glenbrook.
Hi, my name is Deb Schmidt and I am a 1st grade teacher at Glenbrook. I want to talk about an opportunity I had this fall to do a coaching cycle with Chrissy McCurrett. And in the fall, I looked at my FastBridge data scores, and I found that I had quite a few kids that were quite high in reading, and I wanted to be able to extend their learning while also meeting the needs of my other kids in the classroom. So I contacted Chrissy about doing a coaching cycle. So we got together, talked about my needs, and we looked at the power standards. We selected one power standard, and Chrissy suggested that we do a book club with those kids. And they absolutely loved it. So it was a 6-week cycle, and we, like I said, we took our power standard, and then we met and we intentionally planned all of our learning targets and our lessons, and we created a formative assessment that we would give to the kids in the beginning to see a baseline. It was interesting because once we gave them that baseline, when we reflected and met the next day, we noticed that, oh, we need to add a few other things to our learning targets because they weren't quite understanding. So we were able to go back and to adjust it to move forward with our lessons. So during the lessons with the kids, we took notes, we wrote down where we saw evidence of their learning, and then we would always meet every week and talk about how it went, how we could change anything if somebody didn't understand one of the concepts. It was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. The kids in this group made so much growth, and we were also able to do an extension of this book club where they made a digital poster that they shared with the class and their parents. And then they also made a Kahoot game to ask the class what they learned from their presentation. And everybody was just so excited about it, and they loved it, and all the kids want to do a book club now. The good news is that Chrissy taught me how to plan something like this and how to look at my objectives and where the kids are and where they're at their level, that I will be able to work that into my classroom, that I can give that experience to all my kids where they're at different levels. The growth that the kids made was unbelievable. It was fantastic. And this targeted group that were in the book club with us had some of the highest scores in the winter FastBridge testing. So it was amazing. I learned so much about how to intentionally plan, how to extend my students' learning, and how to make it work with all my different levels in the classroom. So I felt I was very fortunate to work with Chrissy, and I would recommend it to anybody. And I look forward to doing more coaching cycles with her to get better at my craft.
So I think really what we heard over and over was the intentionality and how that we're able to help.
Hi, my name is Deb Schmidt, and I am a 1st grade teacher from their presentation.
Just to help teachers at a universal level working with their entire class be able to have that focus on the learning piece, and then possibly from that
have to reteach in a smaller group. It just fits so nicely with the PLC model, with what we want students to know, what it looks like when they're proficient, and what we'll do to extend them. So.
Do you have any questions for the coaches? And then I think we have two elementary principals or APs here that can probably talk about it. And then middle school and high school would have gone through the training that we did as learning leaders as we were preparing for the coaches to come in. So I think if you have questions, they can certainly answer that part of it of more of what student-centered coaching is and how it works in the buildings.
What does it look like in the classroom when you're a coach and you're in there? Like I'm trying to visualize the classroom.
We do co-teaching where there are different moves that we can do. One example could be the classroom teacher is doing the lead teaching, and for example, I'd be going around and I'd have students' names on a paper and the learning targets that I'm looking for, and I would jot down notes so that then we would both have it. Sometimes both of us would be walking around and just jotting things down depending upon what the structure of the classroom is. There are other times where we could do micro modeling. So if there was something a teacher wanted to incorporate into her classroom, we could come in and just lead that little part just to kind of give an example, and then we go back to both being co-teaching. There's when we both will be, kind of bouncing off each other and teaching together, and there's also where we can pull kids and meet with them and conference with them, and we're both there kind of hearing it. There's times that we come together as the kids are working, and I believe one of the videos said, right on the spot, we can pivot our learning. I'm seeing this, okay, what can we do to how can we meet this student's need? What do they need? That type of thing. So it's really a team effort, and pretty seamless. The kids really are very open to it, and they enjoy it.
Tracy, I think you're the one who said your goal is 80% of the students meet standard when you leave. What's the success rate of that?
Boy, I don't know exactly what the specifics are, but we come pretty close, I would say, often. We actually have our SLO as a team is actually reached 90%, which is a high expectation. I hit that once or twice this year. Sometimes I think we hit 80% pretty regularly. However, there are times when we miss the target, but then it's comforting to look at where we started and where the students ended up, and we're still getting growth. We just maybe need to revisit, come back at another time, make a plan to continue to follow up with the teacher and see how we can continue to support them.
How many teachers do you have in cycle at any time?
Three. But we're also working with other teachers, like maybe they might just need a little help with will you just help me get started on working with small groups? And so we might go through, like last year I worked with a first grade teacher using the structured literacy template, and I just worked with her. She was a veteran teacher. I kind of showed it to her. We worked through it a week, and then she was like, okay, I'm good to go. And she flew. So I was able to be in cycles, full cycles, and work with other teachers.
An additional thing we do also is we attend the grade level team meetings so that we know, we're in the conversations of what's going on when they're figuring out, what's the data that they've got, where are our needs, where are questions, that type of thing. We're part of those conversations also, so we can see where it would be a good idea to, reach out to teachers and things.
Generally, I work usually with the team. Sometimes I work with individual teachers. What I'm finding is to be in about 2 cycles at one time and then provide additional coaching as needed is a really nice sweet spot to keep the flow going.
And how many cycles can you do in a school year?
I figure they're about 6 weeks. We start a little later at the beginning of the year because of assessment. Mid-year there's a little late because of assessment. And at the end of the year we end a little early. I would say that right now I've worked with every team at least one time. One grade I did not work with, but I've done a lot of on the side coaching with them, implementing some math things, and I worked with 5th grade twice. So already I've had about 5 cycles, I believe.
So we saw the happy videos. Do you get any feedback where they're not excited to have you in their classroom?
It's teacher choice. We're not like, I'm coming in.
Oh, okay, so they get to
They get to
invite
choose.
you in. Okay.
And we're welcome to say like, oh hey, I noticed, X, Y, and Z. Do you think maybe like we could sit down and just kind of brainstorm how's that going, kind of get the ball rolling? But it really is that teacher choice. So trying to have that happen authentically and naturally, like within conversations, within PLC time. So I haven't had any negative
I haven't
feedback,
either.
but
It's
question.
demanding on the teacher, it is time consuming and we know that their time is their greatest, need of resources, but I've never had anyone say they wish they had or,
Good.
The key word in our presentation a lot was intentionality. So with intentionality, it takes time to get that all going and set it up. But then once you have it going,
One thing we're going to offer up next year is these guys kind of were asking, were there ways that we could help teachers, with the time and their EE, and so we figured out a way that next year, instead of having to do the document log, which is you have to upload a document each year and then reflect in the 6 areas, if they could use that results-based coaching tool, because they're working on it for 6 weeks, they're really in depth with it, a lot of reflection with it. If they could upload that as their overall artifact and just reflect on that part, and we are able to work it into our system, and so that will be an opportunity for teachers. They'll have choice between that, the expertise model, and they can stay with the standard upload your docs and reflect on them as well. So I think that will help some people. Like if I'm going to put the 6 weeks of time into this, I get something out of it as well.
Do you guys find that there's a common ask, like from different groups of teachers? And if so, like what is that common ask?
Liz already asked me, can I do one with you like now? And I'm like, yeah, no, not yet. So that's what I find is once I've done one with someone, they see how much benefit there is that they want to do it in another area. So like I did it with reading with Liz, and now she's like, can we do math? So
is it spreading too to other teachers? I mean, are they?
I think it really
like
comes
is Liz
down
telling
to
other people how good she feels about it, and
yep,
it's spreading. You know what I mean?
I think that is a big piece, that word of mouth. And I think there are people who are just a little timid to have someone in their room. And I think that as that word of mouth continues, the benefits of it, that's when they're like, oh, okay.
What guides you to a classroom? Is it the teacher makes the outreach, or is there a struggle and you reach out and say, are you looking for help, or how does that feature in the classroom?
Yeah, usually they reach out to us.
Okay.
But like we said, we do sit in on each PLC once a week, and so you will hear like they'll bring things up, something they're struggling with, or something that their students are struggling with, and that's a great opportunity for us to just say, oh, why don't we talk about working together? So.
We don't go to them and say, hey, we noticed this is going really wrong in your classroom. Because I'm sure we'd be out of the job
since everything was so positive, but
yeah.
Just thought I'd ask how.
Yeah. I mean, we did like a lot of groundwork last year, building trust and establishing the process and things like that. So
I saw that in what Jenny sent us, kind of those guides and like the standards, what you do, what you don't do, and I think that helped, really clarify that, and it was really nice to see that you guys are building trust and having those conversations. So when everyone sees how great it is, you're gonna have a wait list.
Hopefully. Now that you all are in the elementary school, how do you feel the capacity is with a coach for each school?
Glenbrook's a little challenging, but we're getting there. It's going. There's just so many teachers, so it's too many teachers. If it's a group of 5, it's not recommended that through Diane Sweeney. It's not recommended that you do a whole team when it's that many, because it's so hard to manage. So I don't get to do as many team opportunities as other schools, but a lot of times because I attend the PLCs, then the teacher and I will talk about it with the rest of the teachers too, and so it, is a learning opportunity for everybody. We make it work.
Illinois is perfect. Two teams, 2 teachers per team, and it works out really well.
And I coached with 4K through 5th grade at Fairview already, and I'm working my second round with everybody there. Because we only have one.
Have we talked about loaning out Fairview to
I'm
Glenbrook?
also the potential, no.
So she's not full-time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay, that's right, I did read that. Just trying to help you out.
I appreciate it.
You had mentioned teacher time, because we know how valuable that is. Do you feel as if your position kind of relieves at least one portion of what classroom teachers are doing?
I think that in the beginning, teachers view it as, oh my gosh, this is going to be more time I'm giving up and more on my plate. And I that's a valid point because it's unknown and they don't know exactly. And it does in the beginning to get everything, all the parts moving and figure things out and just to communicate with each other and be clear on what we're doing. But once we get into it, it's actually really efficient when we meet with them and we plan and we get into a groove, and then the teacher starts becoming more comfortable and the teacher becomes more confident in the process, and then you can see them just kind of gradually just automatically taking over, and it kind of seamlessly fits into what they're doing. So I think in the end they realize, yes, it's saving them time.
You think it streamlines their planning and stuff then for the next year? I mean, you know what I
Right,
mean?
exactly.
Now I know how to do this the easy way.
Exactly, yeah.
So, and then we want what we do with them to be sustainable, so like after we're not in their room every day or wherever we're not co-teaching. So I will maybe model, what we think this would look like or whatever, so that kind of, when you sit down, you work on something new and you have to sit and look at it for a long time. I'll kind of try to model that and then kind of turn it over to the teacher so that they can have an idea and they don't have to sit and drum it up from the initial stages, and we kind of talk about what we want it to look like, and then I will go back to my office and I will do a little bit of work and just to give back and to give them some of that, and then hopefully it catches on and it's sustainable after we're gone as well.
And along with that, during the RBCT process, that at the end, that reflection piece, we also talk to them about, okay, how can I help you still going forward, even though we're not in a coaching cycle? What are some things I can still do for you, or that, so we keep that communication open.
And actually, we ask for all the happy comments. We do ask about what we could have done better.
We do. Every time we do. We do.
So just thinking about that,
we
we get that feedback as well.
Good.
I've been fortunate to see it in action, so I usually get an observation or two of each. The principals and I split those up, and I happened to see Lydia and observe her in a pre-planning, and so they had each of the student notebooks pieces out on writing, and her and the 3rd grade teacher, I think it was Katie Noyen, they were going through, they were reading it, they were talking about what each student needed, whether they had it or not, and they were kind of sorting them into 3 piles. They had Post-it notes that they were writing about how to support that student. But that conversation was so rich to hear them talking about each of those students and what those students needed. And then it just happened that I think I was doing either Michelle or Mark and along with them for an observation. And we happened to walk in the classroom, and now they were co-teaching about a couple days later after I actually saw Lydia and the teacher in action. So it is really neat to see the co-planning that happens with them and looking at the student evidence, and then what they take and use it with when they get back into the classroom for the co-teaching part of it.
Do all the students and our coaches, you all get together and kind of share your ideas, like, oh, this worked really great, we haven't used this before, but man, did it really work in this classroom, and you guys kind of all collaborate since it is.
We have a regular PLC time that we meet and talk through things, and even we talk through things that how could we shift this? What does it look like? We've got an all new reading curriculum that is a monster right now, and so that's a lot of discussion. And so
we all have different strengths, so, you know, I have a different background than these guys. I'm from, most of you know me as the middle school Spanish teacher, so, that's a different background, so we all bring different strengths to the table and feed off of each other very well.
Excellent. Sounds like you guys are doing great.
And just one more question related to the students. We kind of heard kind of that general, here are test scores, but could you share like a celebration with a student that you had that you're like, oh yes. I know there's probably so many you can't limit it, but.
Well, and because I think we look at the whole class and we're looking at all their growth, it's hard to pinpoint. So it's not like we're working just with like special needs kids where, you know, it's everybody.
I did a different writing coaching cycle with a 4th grade teacher, and when I looked at growth, so when you do your initial baseline, you look at if students are emerging, developing, meeting the standard, or exceeding, and every student in that class moved, so there was growth. So what we have to remember when you're talking about a standard with an elementary student, that standard is supposed to be met by the end of that year. And so this was in October. And so we did have kids that were at that emerging level, but we didn't have any kids left in that emerging level by the time we were done. So they were all either developing, meeting, or exceeding. And we had a couple of kids move from emerging to proficient. So that was a huge success.
Thank you.
You know, I was just thinking too, like I just finished a 1st grade writing cycle and the post-assessment's still out there, but usually when it comes to writing, it's kind of like a groan. And we tried some different techniques and different strategies, and all of a sudden I'm the writing lady. And the other day I went to the dentist, they do writing without me, and they were all sad. I walked into the building, like, where were you for writing? So it was like this new kind of excitement, and I mean, so I think that's a success as well.
One thing right now that I'm doing, that this is a pretty cool thing too, is in the 4th grade class, we kind of rearranged how she's doing her math, and we do a little formative, like right after the whole group lesson, and we sort that right then and there, and that's helping her develop her small group. And then we also have an enrichment group that we made a choice board, and the kids, once they show what they know and then we extend it, then they can go on and enrich their learning with some choices and things with stuff that we've set up. And the middle group, they're working together and getting more practice, and it's just really, just the whole entire group is just getting some really great instruction and really great growth. So there's just a lot of really good things going on. It's exciting. We're passionate, if you can't tell.
Pat and Matt, are you guys ready to have this roll out in your buildings?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question. You know, and it's been a couple of years of our process, and it was so, you know, new 2 years ago, and I'm really glad that it started at that elementary, because I mean, you look at the folks and the passion that they have, it's pretty darn exciting. And being married to a teacher, it's a tough job. It's a heck of a job. And I think earlier the piece on retention, and I think about the demands, and I think about, here are some of our top teachers right here that are invigorated to take on a new challenge and help other teachers in our universal curriculum take their skills to the next level. These are these are leaders within our district that are our best teachers that wanted to take on something new to give back in a different way. I mean, how cool is that? So to answer your question, 2 years ago to today, way at a different place. Like, I'm excited to see who would be that next person sitting down at the table a year from now talking about what we did at the middle school in relationship to helping support our kids through the work with our teachers.
And do you think your teachers are going to be receptive to this?
I think we'll have the exact same situation that happened at the, I'll be a straight shooter. Is there gonna be some uncertainty there? Oh, 100%. What's gonna be nice is we have that structure already in place with common planning time, the content, within the house of the middle school philosophy, that's built in there. Those teams are working together, but they want to do a better job too. There's only a certain amount of time. And when I think about the projects, it was Deb Schmidt, when she talked about from Glenbrook here, she talked about the kids at that top end and seeing, we put resources and time and, I sometimes, I think about my own kids who are in the middle, and to hear that everyone went from here to there, that's my kid in the middle, or, I struggle with what you were sharing, they moved. Yeah, I'm all in.
Matt?
Yeah, I would just add to that, I first heard about this and this opportunity, I was very excited for this because we've spent so much time and energy on how are we going to increase student growth in our building. And just anecdotally, from the teachers in the videos, the ladies and their stories, sharing how, their work has been able to increase student growth. Why would we not want that in our building? And I think, to Pat's point about the teams and how they talk, success builds success, and those teachers that may be reluctant to that are going to get on board when they see the results that their colleagues are getting. And from my end, I look at this as like, I've been cautiously optimistic, and just pending the board vote on this position, these positions. But I'm very excited about the advent of this position to our building to increase student learning. So.
Jenny, so the this is something we've already approved. You're just looking to try to fill these positions early.
Right, so our ask is, we estimate it to be about $162,000 with salary and fringe for that addition at PHS and PCMS. That would give us our seventh coaches in total in the district. And as that is implemented, then we probably have to have conversations down the road of, for different buildings that are the size that they are, is one coach enough, and are there things that we do, but what we wanted to do is ensure that we had one person per building. So this would be the full implementation of our initial plan 3 years ago.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
There's a motion, hold on. There's a motion and a second to approve the student-centered coach position as presented. Any other discussion and questions?
Yes, please. So the $162,000 for salary and fringe for these, 2 spots, is that within the budget?
Yeah, so, for February going into a budget year, we know more than we normally do, right? We know we're gonna get, $325 increase per pupil, 3,800 pupils, that's 1.2 million. And the bad news is we know that ESSER funding is falling off, right? So we have $1.2 million in ESSER funding covering ongoing expenses. So that's a wash, right? You kind of saw today on benefits. Usually we don't know what our benefits renewal is going to be right now. All things planning, we're assuming a flat increase. We also know CPI came in at 4.1%. So that's obviously the goal based on recent history of how we've handled annual increases. So 4.1% on $27 million payroll. We're looking to cover $1 million going into next year, 1.1 million. We built in some things this year, if you recall, with a stipend of 600,000 one time went away, so that covers some of it. And there's one other piece that we know is coming in. Oh, and we built up capital maintenance of 300,000. So in short, we are tight going into next year. All staffing is going to be as needed, as it has been in prior years as we kind of get through this ESSER funding drop off. So you will see it on the March budget document as a plan if it gets approved today. And just in general, other things we know that aren't getting cheaper, utilities, cost of buses, we're balancing that as well. So we're going to be tight going into next year, in short, but it is nothing that can't be overcome in some budget planning. So
Was this already allocated at one
we really don't have next year's budget allocated, so that's why when this plan came through, the intent was to go through with the plan when it was proposed 3 years ago, knowing that there's unknowns every year. So
Any other discussion or question? No? There is a motion and a second to approve the student-centered coach position as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Superintendent update.
Since this is a workshop meeting, I won't do many updates. I'll just kind of give you just a reminder about our February 23rd Professional Learning Day. So in the morning, there's a keynote speaker, and I put that in my update. And I don't know what's going on with when I send you my update, so I'll probably PDF my update to you since it's coming through one.
She fixed it.
Okay.
We fixed it.
We just need to be in Gmail versus Apple to Apple.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
So,
something weird with that.
because it doesn't look like that for me, so when I looked at that tonight, I apologize for that. But Julie Schmidt is going to be here, and she's really going to cement that all means all message for us here in the district, and I'd love for you to be part of that day if you have time or if you can get away. 7:30 to 9:30, it's about a 2-hour time block that would be great for you to be here. If you are, just make sure, if you're gonna come, just let Dana know so that in case we need to post it as a time that the board would be together, not making decisions, but, gathering. We heard a little bit tonight that we are gonna be launching a survey, more to come on that, but that would be, the timeline would be second week in April around that time, and then those results to be reported out sometime in June after school is out. And I'm just gonna keep calling to note publicly about summer school will be different this year in locations, and so we already have some messaging that's gone out. And you can expect that some people will have a little anxiety about summer school changing locations because it'll be different for some drop-offs and pickup areas. So the main locations for summer school this year will be at the high school, which we've done before. And Mark keeps saying this to me, we've done this before, it's not gonna be a big thing, and I think he even had that in his letter. And then Lanoy instead of Hillcrest because of the extensive projects that are happening here in the district. So you'll continue to see skylarts coming out about that, and we'll continue to field questions and anxieties that families are having about that. But we feel confident that transportation will be fine, and we're going to get the kids where they need to go, and we think that there's some good benefits. But even at the middle school, we'll have to do some rerouting even for our kids to come for swimming lessons and whatnot, because we'll have a path and all of it will be very safe. And we're having lots of conversations around how that'll look just because of the extensive projects that are happening around the district. So let me know if you hear anything else or you need anything about that. Other than that, I think that's all I have for you tonight.
All right, the next meeting is our business meeting on February 21st here in the district office meeting room. Currently on the agenda is the AGR reporting update from Glenbrook. And now I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Good night, everyone.